Welcome to the Coffeyville City Commission meeting for Thursday, December 21st. Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Daniel Knight of the Bible Baptist Church. Please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father, we do come before you tonight and thank you for this opportunity to have city government, Lord, and I pray that you'd give these folks wisdom and discernment. Lord, we come to the Christmas holiday and we thank you for sending your son, Lord, to die for our sin. And Lord, we just pray that you give just the understanding tonight and bless these people, Lord, is our request. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Knight. Travis, nice meeting you. Tonight's consent agenda, City Commission meeting minutes for Tuesday, December 12th, 2017. And 2017 appropriation ordinance number AO-17-24 in the amount of $4,565,775.56. Are there questions or comments or changes that need to take place on this consent agenda?
No questions. I'd make a move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Taylor and seconded by Commissioner Doan to approve the consent agenda as presented. Mayor Bauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Doan.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Under public hearing, special presentation and proclamations, the public hearing will be rescheduled for the purpose of issuing an industrial revenue bond for Raymond's paint project.
Do we want to talk about that while it's on the table somewhat, or?
Well, I believe they are not present to discuss, and I think everyone will be prepared to do that at the next meeting.
Okay. Well, real briefly, what is it? I mean, I read a little bit about it.
Briefly, it's an incentive for renews industrial revenue bonds that would, as it stands currently, well, and I hate to say because we're still working on the details of it, so I
Okay.
don't really.
If we don't
know
want to
what
talk
it's
about
gonna
that, I
entail.
understand. I just thought it might be worth a little bit of conversation. If it's not, I'm
Yeah,
good.
we're in discussions with them and other taxing entities about how we best move forward with this.
Okay.
So actually, as it stands right now, there isn't anything to really say about it because
That's
we
good
haven't made
enough.
any decisions.
It's good enough. Thank you.
Moving on to item number 3 on the regular agenda items is the Parks Board report.
Well, Mayor and Commission, I do see Bob Crable here in the audience, and Alec Hendricks was scheduled to be here to speak, and so I have not heard from him that he wasn't going to be here. In fact, the last communication I had was about an hour ago, so maybe something has
Come up.
held
Maybe he'll
him
show
up.
up in a little bit.
Okay.
You know, I did present, in front of you as a summary of what Alex was going to visit with you about. Bob, are you prepared to say anything?
I did. Wasn't at the last meeting.
Yeah, yeah. Bob wasn't here for the last meeting. You know,
Can't we just wait, bump it down at the bottom?
as far as I'm concerned, we
Okay.
can.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. All right. So we're going to move on to old business.
Mayor.
Okay. Hey, there you are. All right. So at this time, public hearing to amend the 2017 budget. Finance Director Stephanie Richardson will make comments.
Alec just showed up.
Yeah, I didn't see you walk in, sorry.
Mayor and Commissioners, it's that time of year where we take a look at our budget and determine which funds we need to make budget amendments for. This year, when we looked back at our expenses, departments did a good job of maintaining their expenses according to their budget line items. And so the only fund that we need to amend this year is our Business Development Training Center Fund. We call it the BDTC Fund. And that is a result of the decision to tear down the East Walmart facility, and that's where those funds came from for that particular project. So this budget amendment will allow for spending authority to go ahead with changing that budget allowance to follow the state budget rules. This has to be delivered to the county by the end of the year. It was published in the newspaper on December the 9th to meet the 10-day requirement that we have with the state statute. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those. We do need to hold a public hearing this evening if there were any comments.
So the amendment was for the demolition of the old Walmart building.
Correct.
And how much was that?
I set the amendment to zero out the fund.
Okay.
In case there were anything that came up unexpected. I wasn't real sure with the item that was at the last meeting.
Yep.
So I went ahead and set the amendment to where it would zero out the balance of the fund if we needed it. If not, the funds will remain there. So,
Okay. All right. I just saw the amount and I
yeah,
didn't think
yeah,
that's what
why
we.
the amount's
Okay. So.
what it is.
Any other questions? At this time, I will open this public hearing. Any questions, comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, without any questions?
We don't need a motion to
No
close
motion,
it. Yeah,
sorry.
We'll just need
Just-
a motion to.
Yeah, for the next one.
Yes.
Yeah. So Resolution R-17-98, a resolution to certify the 2017 budget amendments. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution R-17-98.
Okay, and I'll second it.
Motion was made by Mayor Bauer and seconded by Commissioner Taylor to approve resolution number R-17-98 for adoption. Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Castler,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Mayor Bauer,
Aye.
Commissioner Doan.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll back up to the Park Board report. Alec Hendricks.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City staff. I'm representing the Parks Advisory Board, and I sent out a summary and basically wanted to go over what we've gone over the last year. We've met regularly once per month. We had a park cleanup in April that was very successful. Some of the things that came out of that were new benches for the horseshoe pits at Walter Johnson Park, overall cleanup at Feaster Park. Those were the two main parks that we're focused on. We also added 2 new members, Bob Kriebel, who's here, and Frank Hull. We've mainly focused on discussing what is the future plan for the parks. As you know, there really hasn't been much capital investment in the parks in quite some time. It's what we need to do to at least maintain minimum, but there really hasn't been new playground equipment installed. Things like better lighting or barbecue pits or improvements at Walter Johnson Park. The equipment is good, but it's starting to show its wear and tear, especially at Feaster Park. There are some pieces of equipment, especially in the wood chipped area, that's starting to rust, and you can see it starting to rust through. A lot of the equipment needs painted. Maybe that could be done by some community groups or other volunteer groups. That maintenance currently is under the Public Works Department, who, as we know, with reduced budgets, and they've been reduced manpower and haven't been able to focus on the parks when there's so many other infrastructure needs in the city. So parks kind of takes a backseat to some of this. They mow it, maintain it, but from a capital improvement standpoint, I think we need some focus there from the city. So at Feaster Park, I kind of went down a list in my report. Again, As you saw from the pictures, we put chips down, we spread chips, and the first large rain that comes along, the chips wash away and go in the grass. So either we need drainage under the playground equipment and some kind of, something to retain the chips or make it level. One of the playground is kind of on the side of a little slope, so the water just runs down. As you can see in the picture, second picture, the wood chips just go over the broken and cracked sidewalk. That sidewalk needs to be replaced or repaired. And then that area leveled out to keep the wood chips retained. There's also been talk of replacing the wood chips with something more permanent like rubber chips. But as you know, that's very expensive.
Right.
Everybody knows that. So the chips are pretty cost effective until they decay and get washed away.
Well, the rubber ones would wash away too. if
No,
it-
they're pretty heavy. They're basically made out of recycled tires.
Are there not grants for stuff like that?
Yeah, and there are some park grants available, competitive as anything else.
Is that something we could look into at least?
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Good idea.
Yep.
Good
smaller-
idea, Marcus.
Thank you.
Smaller projects that we could do at like Feaster, even North Park, LeClaire is, one thing at Feaster is improve the lighting under the picnic shelters. Yeah, there's some light bulbs under there, but they could probably be brighter for some early evening activities. Also install new industrial barbecue grills. The ones out there are showing their wear and they're rusted through. They're used extensively. I've personally been out there many times at the park and seen 2 or 3 birthday parties going on, and they're using the grills. And you can also tell that by the pile of, barbecue ash.
Charcoal, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
from the charcoal at the side of the grill, that we probably need a better container for that. That can be easily dumped somewhere. Right now, it's just builds up in a pile on the ground by the barbecue grills.
Yep. Not,
Little things like that.
not to interrupt, AMI project, the lighting, is that something that could work into, or not, excuse me, into our project for lighting around the city,
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if that's a possibility or not,
it-
but
It could.
Probably a small
What he's
section
talking
of it.
about is like a different fixture.
Right, okay.
It would be, it can go into that. We can incorporate that into it, but it could probably be easily handled in some other fashion as well.
okay, yeah. I was just thinking, we have projects going on
we
around
have-
lighting already, so.
We do have, lighting up under the picnic shelters, but we also have exterior flood lamps on some of those, at least at, Feaster. So, maybe whether we look for LED lights or just an additional lighting under there to.
Okay, yeah,
Well, whatever lighting you get under the picnic shelters needs to be very robust, that
Yeah.
can't be broken by a rock or a baseball.
all right.
Walter Johnson Park, there's been incremental improvements there. Overall, as you know, it's a good park. In 2016, one of the park cleanup task was to make the horseshoe pits better because they were basically overgrown, unusable. They made them usable, and in April 2017, they redid the viewing benches, the spectator benches for that. So that's actually a pretty good area. If somebody wanted to hold horseshoe tournaments now, it could be done.
Good.
Also, Frisbee golf was put in by the CCC soccer team, and I've seen people out there playing. I'm sure you've all seen the
Oh,
post
yeah.
as you
I thought
drive
around
by.
too.
One area we've discussed and we don't really have an adequate solution right now, and that's basically because of unknown funding or budget that could be available, and that's North Park. North Park has a large population of children in the neighborhood south of there. It's not really used, but when you drive by, you can understand why. It's very minimal, has a swing set. It could use a larger, multi-equipment, playground equipment, also maybe some chair swings for parents to sit on while they're there, maybe even a picnic shelter. Same thing at Walter Johnson Park. Walter Johnson Park could use a picnic shelter like the ones at Feaster, at least one of them. As you know, there's not one there. So you have
Is
that
that-
large playground equipment, but not a picnic shelter.
Is that one at Walter Johnson, is that one slide still blocked off out of working order because of the missing? There was a piece in it that couldn't get reordered. So
That
the
I don't
slide
know.
had to be taken out of working order.
Yes, I am unfamiliar with that also.
Okay.
I'll
You
find
might
out.
check into it.
So, North Park needs some attention, and that's gonna require some funds. If we wanna put better equipment in there, a larger playground set, swings, picnic shelter. Harmon Park, there needs to be a plan for Harmon Park, and I'm sure Kendall will be discussing that with you in 2018
Which is,
at some point.
oh, okay.
One of our other big topics that we've had in our meetings and trying to look at cost, what can be done, community collaboration is the tennis courts. The tennis courts, and you can drive by there and walk around there and see for yourself, but they're basically unusable. They're not ready or in a state of ready for serious play. And not tournament play, you know, the baseline's completely worn out to the concrete. It's very slippery. It's not very grippy. So water, there's standing water after it rains. The green kind of top layer is peeling up in a lot of places. And really the tennis courts need to be totally redone.
Torn out and started
Yeah,
over.
they need a better base, better foundation, redone where the water drains off properly. You don't have standing water, that it's done right, the concrete's level now. I don't know if there's been discussion of not completely tearing out the concrete, but milling off a few inches and then putting self-leveling concrete down. And then putting a layer and get a company in that knows what they're doing with that, you know, tennis court type top coating. And for all 6 courts, we've had several quotes and they all come in around the 400,000 range.
Each court, or,
No, total for all 6 courts.
do you know how much for each court it would be?
It's roughly 50 to 60,000.
Is there a way we could do one court at a time and make it progressive?
Probably not effectively. If you tore out the entirety of it, then,
Start over
no,
all at once.
Obviously, the answer
It's
would
gonna
be
be
no.
more expensive to do one at a
Yeah,
time
you'd
because
be
the company's not
mobilizing
gonna
and stuff.
charge you,
But
I mean,
part of it is
That's
to
just a lot of
determine
money.
whether or not
For,
you truly need 6 courts. If it's purely for recreational tennis, probably not. But if you want to continue to utilize it for the tennis team and be able to hold tournaments and stuff, then yeah, we probably need the 6 courts.
has the school district and city rec talked to you about helping?
We have talked on a few occasions about it, and for it to occur would have to be some kind of collaborative effort. No one entity has that kind of money to invest in it. And, you know, I was hesitant to commit anything on the city's funds because it's still a substantial amount of money that we would have to get creative on where we come up with that kind of investment.
there are grants out there for tennis courts for towns, small towns, but we can't count on getting that anytime soon. You can't count on it.
We definitely need to try.
Yeah.
I mean, when we started this whole thing, Alec, you know this, we knew we were opening up the fact that we're gonna shed light on the fact that we don't have funds for all this. But we wanna do our study, we wanna look at it, get a plan, start our funding, and see what we can do, right?
Yep. Yeah, the advisory board's been in existence now just over 2 years, and we still don't have a dedicated budget for parks.
So, yeah, we need to look at the dedicated budget, you know.
But they
I
do
mean,
have, sorry, go ahead.
Well, my opinion is what we need to do is take each one of these, pick out our projects, get quotes on them, decide what these things are gonna cost us, and then we can go from there. I mean, because right now, I don't know if $100,000 fixes all of our parks or $10,000 fixes all of our parks. I don't know what it is. I can't even guesstimate it. But, I mean, I think that's the reason the Parks Board is in place, to identify the broken concrete, what it's gonna take to fix these, put a dollar figure to it, and then at that point, that's when you bring it before us and say, hey, you know, here's the amount of money for 2018 or 2019 when we're setting our budgets. These are the things we want worked on, and this is what it's gonna cost. You know, we might have to adjust for a percentage because it's next year's work, but we can at least look at it and say, all right, yes, it's something we can do, or no, it's not something we can do. And I don't know that, I mean, to say that we just put $50,000 in a parks fund for here till the end of, for 20 years, I mean, would we use $50,000 a year? Maybe, but maybe it only costs $5,000 a year after we get everything where we feel like it should be maintained. That's where I'm at with it.
Well, and I'll say that's what I've been trying to encourage the board is they're an advisory and a planning board. If they can come up with a list of priorities and a strategic plan, if you will, for the
Right.
parks, that then we can incorporate into our budget planning process, to try to, yeah, we're gonna have some large capital investment in some areas. Some of it is more maintenance, sidewalk or something
Right.
is obviously on a lower scale.
Yep.
They've tried to incorporate some improvements, you know, whether through the disc golf or you know, handicap swings, things like that, that they've tried to work in there on limited funds. But that's probably what the focus should be, like you said, to come back with, here's where we're at, here's where, over the next 5 years, we think these things can be accomplished if we break it down.
I'd like to see them come up with a 5-year plan of each kind of project, what they want to do each year and what they think they can do. Because if I remember correctly, this was set up as an advisory committee, and they really didn't have a budget per se. But to advise the city on what needs, and I agree with some of this. The aquatic park needs some attention, and a lot of these are good, but it just comes down to what is the most important, like he said. And I know you talked about at one time you and I talked about a concrete path that goes from the parking lot to the handicap swings and stuff like that for those. I'm all for this. Our boards have been, our parks have been in disarray for a while. It took someone coming up and showing us how bad it was at one point years ago to really get us going, but I really believe that, and that's what I would like to see is a 5-year plan of what you guys want to do, just detailed, just so we'll know.
Does the advisory board have the ability to get quotes and get a price list?
We just work through Kendall,
Okay, okay.
and then
Yep.
he works with his staff.
Yeah, I mean, my advice would be to here's your wants and here's your needs, you know? And then we go through and we prioritize them by, you know, if it's, like I said, one project is $50,000, well, that may be the budget for the year. So if that's what we want to focus on and the board says that's the direction
Well,
we.
if you did one big thing a year, in 10 years, you'd have a lot. And right now, we're basically doing nothing for the last,
Two.
quite
We
longer
have
than
longer
that.
other things.
Yeah.
I mean, they spent some money quite some time ago to put some good equipment in at Walter Johnson and Feaster, but there hasn't been a whole lot done since.
Right.
I'll continue. One thing, the advisory board is not sure that the aquatic parks falls under our umbrella. Just from an advisory viewpoint, you know, if we go look at it and look around, make recommendations.
Yep.
I have some recommendations on the aquatics part from the vantage point of a 2-year-old running around there. Some of those things are simple things, I think not too expensive. It's additional shades on the frame shades you see out there. They're fine if the sun's directly overhead, but when the sun starts to go at an angle in the evening, there's no shade exactly under those places. It would just put some additional shades on the back. The other thing I noticed is the concrete you know, is fairly hot to walk on in the hot summer. And if you put that white coating on, that's kind of in the zero entry part,
Right.
it's cool to the feet. And, you know, if that was put in more places in some of the walking paths where you're likely to be barefoot. Moving on, as we discussed about the budget, lastly, I just want to say, parks are an attraction and a part of the decision for people with children to live in Coffeyville. So as you go about attracting jobs and getting jobs in this area, that doesn't mean that people are going to live here. We have a lot of jobs here at the industrial park and some of the other big industry here, and a lot of those people don't live here. They drive in from somewhere else. So in your decisions with parks and quality of life features of the city, think about that. That's all I have. Any further questions?
I just have one suggestion. I mean, I hate to be the one to bring it up, and else brought it up. Do we ever think about naming rights on some of this? Where did we come up with the North Park? I mean, just because it's on the north side. And Harmon, where'd that name come from? Does anybody know?
There's
I mean, I
certain
kind of
guy.
know. Huh?
There's a Harmon Foundation, that building they had there, and
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we might think about that. Some corporation or individual might
Yeah.
do something with the naming right issue. That's something
Way
that
to
could
help
be
fund it, maybe.
on the agenda
I
or
was saying
in
if they had their
our
name to it.
thoughts.
Oh, you're saying if they had their name to it, they might help out?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I mean,
So
It's
it's an
something that
option?
people think about. I just throw that out there. You know, somebody might, you know, I don't know how you advertise that or talk about it, but it might be a consideration. And, Alec, if there was one spot that we'd spend 25 to 50,000 on to get started, what would it be? You looked them over pretty good. Have you, has that been, I mean, I know we've
Yeah, I
got the
mean,
tennis
we've
courts.
we've talked about additional playground equipment at Feaster in the kind of chip area furthest away from the restroom. Some of those are getting rusted out and need repaired, and or painted, just simple painting, but either sandblasted down to the bare metal and primed and painted again to look good. But if you did a large playground, a new set like at Feaster on the north side of that play area, what'd we say, $70,000 to $80,000 for something like that? Installed.
$75,000.
Just gonna ask what that,
Installed, so something like that
costs.
costs 70 to
Playgrounds
80
aren't cheap,
installed,
period.
probably
Yeah.
more now. But
That's
little
a
small
playground.
things are in the 5 to 8, 10 range.
Okay.
You know, a little slide for 6, 7-year-olds. Climbing up little pieces of equipment like that can be a spin around thing, you know, 1,000 or 1,500 we looked at. We've also talked about putting in a large playground set at LeClaire, so when parents are walking around the lake, it would be in an area where that playground would be visible to them at all times walking around, so it'd be some central point that they could always have their eyes on it. Something like that, but again, you're talking 40 or 50,000, so
Right. Not cheap.
Yeah.
nothing's cheap anymore.
Right.
Maybe on the painting, our new company could help. Have them powder coated.
But, and even some of that equipment, it still works, but it's far from new.
Need some tender loving care, maybe a little bit of it.
A little bit of it,
Yeah.
yeah.
But we do have money from the alcohol tax fund that,
We do have money in that Parks and Rec fund, and we put it in there, you're right, it comes from that fund. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you what's in there, but I'm gonna say roughly 60,000, that's a ballpark.
is that stuff they can't use a little bit of here and there?
Well, and we have, we have taken some from it, that's, with frisbee golf, things like that, so, but there's probably not enough in that fund to put in a full playground.
Oh,
set.
no, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that.
Right.
It's- Some of the little stuff he was talking about, like Little League Slide and merry-go-round and stuff like that, I imagine we could use for some of that and put them in North Park or something like that.
And that's, that's a commission decision that, on how you'd wanna move forward. We'll continue to work to see if we can come up with 5 to 7 things over the course of the next 3 to 5 years that we should focus on and come back with something a little bit more concrete.
Okay.
Well,
And
apparently,
those
in-
capital funds would be separate from just maintenance, you know, money, because there is money spent right now on the parks from a manpower standpoint, but it falls under Public Works umbrella, and it's not tracked exactly how much money is spent just on parks from mowing and trimming and changing light bulbs and fixing this and fixing that, so.
yeah.
Yeah, that, the capital for the parks would be a separate line item, I think. But it also leads to a discussion is if there should be a person, and I'm not saying full-time, maybe even part-time, that does have a focused responsibility for the parks and their maintenance. You know, somebody to go
Yeah.
around and look, see what's broken, what needs fixed.
'Cause we had that at one time, didn't we? At least out at Walter Johnson, didn't we have a person? It's been years ago.
That little house out there.
2000, before the flood.
Yeah.
There was someone that stayed out there, wasn't there? Took care of Walter Johnson?
There was a caretaker's house
Hmm.
that was lost in the flood.
Yep. I didn't know if that person was in charge of all the parks or if it was just Walter Johnson Park, but they did the mowing and they did the upkeep and everything of all Flora Hall and everything, correct? Yep.
Well, we definitely want to look at this grant thing too. I
Yep,
mean,
I agree.
you know, put that on our list. I
But-
don't know who does that, but
Could you get some prices on the grills?
Yeah.
That's probably
and-
a small item that
it-
some groups would probably,
Well, and I think the ones that are there were probably constructed in-house.
okay,
Just purely a guess.
Prices on what? I didn't.
grills.
the charcoal grills.
I'd like to make a suggestion. We have however much in the parks fund. Before we start replacing things, we need to fix things that we already own, including the grills, obviously. Why don't you come back with a list of things that need to be fixed?
Immediately.
Yep.
And we'll work on a 3 to 5 year plan and look at some of the bigger capital projects and how much they cost. And then, of course, we'll continue discussions and see where we can get with tennis courts on who's interested and who wants to pitch in 150,000 each. And
Yeah, because that's going to take some
Something done.
conversation between.
Yep,
the
it will.
And that's going to take someone to take ownership to say that I'm going to drive it and I'm going to get the 3 entities that you talked about involved and we're going to come to we're either going to
Yeah.
do it or we're not going to do it. And here's
have
how
to-
it plays out, right? I mean, that's the end result.
Well, it might be we're gonna do it when we can do it. Okay.
I agree.
Alec, how do we decide, or how do we decide whether we're gonna do 4 or 6, or how do we, I mean, that's something we've gotta decide.
Well,
No.
and that's all part of the discussion as to
Right.
what do you see as the end use? If it's recreational, you don't need 6 courts.
Right. What does the college or the
The high school has a
educational?
team, the high school has a team, they're.
Would they, could they help with that if the schools used it? I
I-
mean,
I'd like to hope that they
Well,
could.
we could
but
give
I-
them a
but I-
letter.
But I won't, you know, I've had conversations with Dr. Carell.
Yeah.
But, you know, money's tied everywhere.
well,
And
we could get them a letter and tell them we're thinking about it and trying to make that decision, whether we're gonna do 4 or 6.
if
And
you
they
ever
might-
want to hold tournaments here for the high school or any other, you know, city, it's going to have to be 6.
you-
Right.
To me, it's pretty simple, and I might upset some people by saying this, but if it's a conjoined effort, then we do 4, 6. If it's just us, then, you know, it's more of a recreational purpose, and we do what we think would suit the community.
I agree.
Well, that is gonna upset some people, Justin. No, that's what we gotta decide, 4 or 6, I mean, I think we need to get a letter to the college or whoever and see if they, you know, if we're gonna use it for that. That's the first, I mean, Alec, I'm assuming by your comment that we probably wanna do that. The 6, right?
Mm-hmm. I
Is
mean,
it-
it's there, the land's there, it's,
The hard work's done. Is that what you're saying?
no, the land is there, I mean, the space, yeah, the space is
Yeah.
there.
The footprint is already
The
there.
footprint is there, I guess, yeah.
If you want to have a grass patch on one side, I
Right.
guess you could take out 2 courts,
Well, they have grass courts.
but, Okay, any other questions?
Back to what I was saying, can we just get a list of what needs to be fixed immediately?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good.
all right,
Thank you.
Thanks, Alec, and
thank you.
tell everybody thanks. And Bob's joined the team. Well, how long you been on there, Bob?
About 8 months.
Okay, well, thank you, Bob.
Last month I was here and I was out.
Oh,
Did you get one?
One other question before we close this discussion. I don't mean to put you under the gun, but how long do you think you can get or need to have that list compiled?
We meet on the first Monday of every month, so I'm not sure we'll have it done in January, but possibly February, the second meeting we could.
Can we put them on the agenda for the second meeting in February?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alec.
Okay, moving on to old business. Ordinance number S-17-04, a second reading of an ordinance to provide for the acquisition of an interest in certain real property necessary for the construction of the 11th and Willow intersection project. No changes from the previous meeting.
I'll make a motion. If no questions, I'll make a motion to approve S-17-04 for adoption.
Second.
Who was the second?
Oh, he was second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Castler and seconded by Mayor Bauer to approve ordinance number S-17-04 for adoption. Commissioner Taylor.
aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Mayor Bauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Doan.
Aye.
Moving on to new business, resolution number R-17-99, a resolution to approve the City of Coffeyville fee schedule. City Clerk Cindy Price will make comments.
Mayor and Commissioners, the fee schedule that the city has includes fees for all of our license and permits, building permits, cemetery services, utility fees, admissions, golf course, tee hangers, just about anything that the city gets paid for. When our ordinances were codified, all of the fees were set out to be established by the fee schedule. We do not have fees other than our utility rates in our ordinances anymore. They're all in the fee schedule. So we have reviewed the fee schedule. You have a copy in front of you. There were relatively, not in front of you, in your agenda packet, I'm sorry. There were relatively few changes from previous. A lot of it was just cleaning up some things. From what you were sent out, we did make one change, and we had looked at pulling off the towing and the storage of any towed vehicles, because we do not tow vehicles anymore. We have a towing company that does that. They charge the person when vehicles are towed. We are leaving the storage fee. We're recommending the storage fee at $25 be left on, just to cover ourselves in the event that we do end up with a vehicle in storage. We can go through what we marked as changes if you want to. You can ask questions.
I looked through.
We recommend,
Yeah.
and staff has, all of our department heads have gone through the fee schedule.
I looked through everything on here. We had some time changes. Other than that,
The times
yeah.
change, yes.
yeah.
Previously, our cemetery workers came in early. They work till
Mhm.
5 now, so we didn't need to have the 9.
Right.
So what are we doing on the mowing, the cost of mowing plus 51%?
Yes, and that is in our ordinance. The 51% is to cover any charges, the sending out certified letters. That just covers-
Administration.
Yes, and then there's a $100 fee on top of that for mowing. If we have to go out and do a weed lot
Mm-hmm.
and mow that.
Has that been working out pretty good, I guess? That 51% plus 100, is that, I mean,
Yes.
is that pretty good, you guess? I mean, that's one thing that kind of, I just wondered, you might get some complaints on.
Yes, I would say yes, the short answer is, it works fairly well.
Okay. Well, we can always come back and change something if we want, right?
Okay. This is designed to be reviewed annually, and so, bring these recommendations for this and to take effect in January 1st and throughout 2018, and then we'll review it again towards the end of 18 and bring it for approval then.
Okay.
And we've got this, for the public, the residential landlord occupation license, that's something that's kind of new, isn't it, or?
It's
Yeah.
absolutely new.
Right.
It's
It's
yet to be voted on, but it has to be placed in here.
Right,
And if-
Sure.
Right.
And if it were to not pass or to be changed, we would change that accordingly.
Well, it'd just be dormant until the next one. Okay, good enough.
Any other questions?
No.
Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number R-17-99 for adoption.
Second.
Motion was made by Mayor Bauer and seconded by Commissioner Castler to approve resolution number R-17-99 for adoption. Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Doan,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Mayor Bauer,
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Resolution number R-17-100, a resolution to purchase work comp insurance. Finance Director Stephanie Richardson will make comments.
Mayor and Commissioners, in 2013, the city joined the Kansas Eastern Region Insurance Trust for our workers' compensation coverage that's referred to as CARET. It's a group that was established in 1986 as a member-driven group. There's currently 18 members. 15 of those are cities, 2 counties, and 1 Parks and Rec Board. They offer safety training to our employees, premium discounts, those types of things. The quote that we received this year is a premium of $183,224, which is $40,500 less than last year's quote. Much of that is due to our experience mod has decreased from 1.37 in 17 to 1.26 in 2018. We've also seen a decrease due to the lower loss ratios in 2015 and 16, and those are included in your packets. You can see our total amount of losses each year and what those ratios result in.
Yeah, well, we've been through this a couple times. That mod factor, I mean, you know, that's kind of a big deal. You
It's a
guys
very
know
big
it,
deal.
okay? And I don't know if now's the time to talk about it. But over the years, what's that mod factor been?
It's
I
been.
mean, one is
what we would strive for.
one is
below.
average.
Yeah,
One is
right,
average.
right.
And we're up above that.
Yeah, we are on the high side.
And
but-
all companies and all units, entities go up and down depending on a few claims. I wonder how we're doing, we can talk about it later a little more, Kendall, but I wonder how we're doing on managing that, because that's a big number. I mean, you're in this group, but that doesn't affect our mod factor. I mean, our rate is based on our mod factor.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the group. I mean, the group's one thing, the mod factor's the driving factor. And I remember we talked about this a year ago, and then guess what? We don't talk about it until next year. I'm just wondering what we can do to manage that, because that is you try to manage it. You can't help it if somebody's got gets hurt or whatever, but
Right.
how are we, real briefly, what are we doing to manage? Have you looked at that a little bit, Kendall?
Well, I
And-
could, Marilyn Evanson's here tonight. She could speak to some specifically of what we're doing for that, and probably speak to our history just a little, because I think we have still one bad year, for lack of a better description.
Typically, our work comp rates are based on the last 3 years, and so it'll always works itself off. We are still working off one bad year, so hopefully next year we'll do better. We use KMU and MISO for our safety training. We have safety training monthly here in the city. I think our employees do a pretty good job of thinking safety first. One of the things that we deal with is our employees get hurt by others. 2 of our claims this year was from a traffic accident that we ended up having a bloodborne body fluid exposure. And then a dog bite. Those are the kinds of things that we end up with. Having to lift up a stolen trailer, we had a back strain. Just things like that. Very hard to control. If we end up chasing somebody or whatever, we have a classification that we look at as caused by others. So that's one of the things we deal with in the business that we do. Police and fire are 2 areas that, you can have a lot of large claims in quickly.
Well, it's
But
gonna-
we look at it as hard as we can all the time, and
Okay,
And we get input. We have a employee safety
Mm-hmm.
committee, so they're actively involved in that. We
accident reviews,
accident,
investigations.
near miss review. So even if we don't have an actual claim or an accident, if we have a near miss, we're reviewing those and trying to work through how we could have addressed things better.
Yep.
So,
So, go ahead.
all right. Marilyn, that 2014 is a high one. Okay, so if we have a good year, then it's gonna, you say we saved, just out of curiosity here, it's 183, it's down, how much was it, Stephanie?
40.
40,000.
So next year I'll be down another, 40, hadn't it?
But I hope so.
I mean,
hope
if
so.
we have another year like we had in 15 and 16, at that 25 to 29% rate,
Our experience mod should
Right.
drop below the 1%, and
Or
then
close to
we
it.
will start getting more discounts instead of paying a premium.
right?
Anything over the 1%, we're basically paying a premium on.
Well, that,
So,
if it's 1 point, what's the mod factor now? Just so everybody knows.
1.27, I believe.
1.27.
Or
We're paying
1.26.
1.27 times the rate.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
1.26.
Yep.
We have
Well, I
been
mean,
as
that
low
was-
as in that 0.8s, and that's our goal always.
Point
What?
8.
Yeah, we've been as low as in the 0.8s,
Right.
and that's always our goal, so.
And,
Yeah.
and what was our rate at that time? What was we paying, roughly?
I don't remember either. It was probably in the 160, 170. There's other factors that
Sure.
come into it as well. The National Council on Compensation Insurance, they look at all the claims in the US. And a firefighter, they look at all those, all the police officers, all the street workers. And so then they set a claim or a percentage as a premium for police officers, and then their salaries come into that as well. So those are factors as well.
So do we have where we think we're gonna be at for 2017? I mean, we are 1 week away from it. What we are for this year? Last year we were at 25, 2015 we were at 26. What do we think we're gonna come in at this year?
Are you talking the loss ratio?
Yes, yes.
I don't have that right off the top of my
That's fine.
head. Anything that I would have would be probably a month old
Okay.
from, the compilation from work
Sure.
comp.
Well, you
and
know, if
getting
we've
all the
had
medical
some
bills.
claims,
We've had 10 this year.
Yeah,
Like
but
I
that-
said, 2 of them were bloodborne exposures and one was a dog bite. They've all been fairly mild, I guess.
Okay.
Nothing severe, which is the best.
Absolutely.
okay, well, that's kind of a big deal, and nothing really we can do about it except
We continue
talk
our
about it. I mean,
focus.
it's, huh?
We continue our
Focus
focus
on
on it all the
safety.
time. You
Yep.
bet. We work with our doctors here. We have a return to work program. So if that employee can come back to work sooner, it's always better.
Yep.
There's, studies that show they heal better
Right.
when they're back at work. So we focus on all of that. I think Dr. Christensen, Dr. Sandu, they're aware of what our people do. And if they can get them back to work or we have a light duty for them, we definitely take advantage of that.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any other questions?
Nope, I'd make a motion for that one, where is it at? I'd make a motion to approve resolution R-17-18 for adoption.
100.
100. What did I say?
18.
I'll
It's
second.
okay.
I missed the second, too. Motion was made by Commissioner Taylor and seconded by Commissioner Doan to approve resolution number R-17-100 for adoption. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Doan.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Mayor Bauer.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn, or Stephanie.
Resolution number R-17-101, a resolution to execute a memorandum of agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police. City Manager Kendall Francis will make comments.
Mayor and Commissioners, before you, you have a resolution to execute a 3-year memorandum of agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police. Previously, I had provided you with quote-unquote red line version of the changes to our MOA. I did not provide you with the entirety of the MOA as it's pretty lengthy, but the changes that were agreed upon in their context. And also in front of you tonight, I provided basically a breakdown of our offers and their offers, and then you'll see in notations under each one of them in red how those ended up, whether or not there was an agreement, if there was agreement, to what level. I just thought it would be a little clearer for you to help understand where we started and what we ended up with. Again, this is a 3-year agreement. The highlights, it calls for a 1.5% pay adjustment as was discussed in budget discussions. Does change the living restrictions, which we did that not really as part of the negotiations, but those are listed in the MOA, so that's included as well. Couple of things that were added were federal law having to deal with discrimination and changes in the break times for nursing mothers. A couple of the other things, that, like you said, you'll see the notations of where we are, and I guess maybe I just open up to questions if you had specific questions.
So I just want to make sure. So the ones that say no agreement under them, what, are they
Essentially
not
no-
in, they're not in there?
Exactly.
Okay.
I didn't know the best
They
wording.
came to you and asked for that, and,
Well, the first page, you'll see our individual proposals.
Sure.
And the second page is their individual
okay,
proposals.
I follow you. Yep.
And so if there was, so for like ours, if it says no agreement,
Mm-hmm.
that means we either chose not to pursue it any further, or we realized it wasn't going to,
Gotcha.
you know,
Yep.
wasn't going to be accepted.
I was just making sure I was,
Right.
Let's just talk about this for a minute, because obviously we have problems hiring policemen. So let's look through here and find out what we can do to get some people hired.
Okay.
And quite frankly, we've been playing games, in my opinion, for the last 2.5, 3, 4 years. We've obviously got a problem here, and we need to address it. So if we need to do things to make things more amenable for people to come to work here, what are we doing?
Okay, specific to the MOA or specific to just hiring police officers?
Let's just talk about it all,
Okay.
because this is the only time we get to talk about it.
Okay.
Now, can we go in executive session and talk about this if we want to, or if we need to? No, okay.
Really?
I just want to make it clear. I wasn't sure. That's fine, we can talk about it. Let's roll.
I guess probably the things that we have done to try to entice officers. First, we enacted a sign-on bonus. It was originally set as $2,000 for a certified officer, $1,000 if you were not certified. That didn't seem to have a lot of effect on getting anyone. In discussions with other departments. Chief Bromley has said that other departments had gone away from hiring bonuses for non-certified officers. But we thought it was important to try to entice certified officers, because that, obviously, we're not sending them to training. We can get them on the streets quicker. So we raised that sign-on bonus to $3,000. We have raised the
Now, if they, how does that work if they start and quit?
that's a little bit of a risk that we take.
Can't you give those sign-on bonuses based upon,
But we gave, the non-certified, we gave it, I believe we were giving it successful completion of training. But we haven't really put any language into it that if you quit within a year or something, that you have to pay it back. It's a little bit of our understanding that those don't have a lot of teeth in those, and it's hard to enforce. So,
So what if we break
Just
it in
a risk.
half?
that's what I was gonna say, in 6-month increments?
Yeah, what if you initially, if it's 3,000, get 1,500 when they're hired on, and that is 6-month eval. If they're in good standing, you give the other 1,500.
and we could look to do that.
And Marilyn, have you got something that, I mean, I guess this is a place we talk about it. We might be quite a while talking, but if this is the place. But, I mean, I know trucking companies and all of them do that, but if you quit, you just don't take the money and run. I mean, there are, Marilyn, you have any experience on that? I mean,
No, I don't. I'm just, have been told, I'm trying to get someone to stay. It's unenforceable to get money back from them.
well, Paul, you know about this kind of stuff too. This is HR.
I think the condition you're talking about is a reasonable one. If.
I think a lot of them that you gotta stay for a year and it's
Yeah,
prorated.
But then they
It's-
don't, you could always
it's-
prorate, but if you give the bonus up front and then they leave you.
Right.
Then you're in a position where if they don't voluntarily pay it back, you may have some sort of a civil claim against them. Then you're talking about suing an employee.
But but the process of breaking that up in increments over 3, 6, 9-month period until you obtain that, whatever the golden number is, that would be more amenable to keep people to stay. So they
Right, so you give
receive
it to
that.
them about per paycheck for the first year.
Yeah.
Sign-on bonus, you get so much for the first year. I don't know. I mean, this is something that needs to be looked at. First time I've seen it, talked about it, or paid attention to it.
It's kind of out of my wheelhouse when it comes to the higher on bonus portion of it.
I don't know
mean,
what
I'm
other
not-
police departments are doing.
I don't
You
know.
got,
I would be, in tune to hear what someone else is doing along
I
these
imagine
lines.
we gotta start thinking outside the box to get people.
Well, and it's a little bit my thinking. $3,000 up front is a lot more of an enticement than $250 a month for 12 months.
I guess when you hire them, you look at them, it's
Judgment
also
call.
a consideration, common sense. Are they the kind of person that's gonna stay before you hire them? I don't
It
know.
can also be every 3 months or something like that too.
Do we want to be proactive or reactive on the thing? I don't know. Okay, well, I guess,
Obviously, we've expanded the residency requirements. Again, that was something that was requested for the MOA. That's not something that we negotiate. That's something that happens citywide. But we did expand that. Some of the other things I was trying to think off the top of my head, we've adjusted our hiring procedure. Previously, we would post a position, and at a set date, we would test, and go through that process of the testing and the background checks and the interviews, and all that time, we would close the position to see if we were going to be able to hire some. And if we weren't able to hire the amount we needed, say if we needed 4 and we only hired 1, then that that gap there, that 45 days to 2 months, whatever, that position, we're not taking applications. We've changed that. We're going to leave that open-ended. We'll set testing dates for specific dates every month, and that way we can plan on when we're going to be doing the written test and the agility test. And then between those times, they'll start the background process, they'll start the interviews. Some of that is dependent on the applicant themselves, how quickly they return their background packet to us. We provide it, they have to fill it out and return it. And then the detectives are doing those background checks. Of course, if something happens that pulls the detectives away from that, it slows the process a little bit. So speeding up the hiring process is something we're trying to figure out, what we can do best to speed up that, the background checks, all that, so that we're, our goal is 45 days to be completed through the entirety of the process till the time that we make an offer. So we're always looking at ways we can do that. I have raised the entry-level wage from $16.01. If you approve this agreement, it would go to $17.25 or $17.26. So that puts us on par with other area agencies, so that makes us much more attractive as a hiring bonus, or as a beginning wage. That wage then increases once they've completed KL Law Enforcement Training Center, and then at the end of the first year, then the wage goes up again. So we've put those things in place to try to, like I said, be competitive and lure more people in. Some of the things that are included in the MOA that personally I don't know what kind of effect that it has as far as recruitment. You'll see in here that we have changed from under the uniform bulletproof vest to exterior vest, which is something that that officers had desired. It's not in the MOA, but if Chief Bromley's here, he can speak to a lot of this as well.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As city manager was indicating that the officers wanted to go away from the traditional uniform, which in today's world, it's just not practical for them working on the road. So they wanted to go to a softer uniform, outer vest with pockets on the outside. And since it seems to be the trend that law enforcement agencies across the country are going to. Other recruitment things were like we were looking at, but it's not feasible, were assigned cars for take-home. Right now, that's just not feasible. Finances are not there, although that would be an attractive thing to do. The residency requirement, changing that to be more competitive with other agencies. What the problem is, this is not a phenomenon that is just specific to Coffeyville. Law enforcement agencies across the country are having this problem. And not to get into politics or anything, but it's from 4 years of negative police imaging across the country from the media. It's just not an attractive thing for young people to want to go into nowadays. And it's sad, but now we're starting to feel the results of that. All the law enforcement agencies, all of us, we're doing our best to try to get that quality person because of the standards that we have for the people that we hire. It's not like filling a position to operate a piece of equipment or work in the retail stores. They have to have psychological testing, batteries of that, polygraph examinations. I mean, you guys know that when you have somebody coming in your home when you're away because your door's open, that person's going to go in there and do the right thing, and that's what we want. And so our standards are still at that level, but the quality of applicants have been going down. And we're all fighting for that one applicant that meets in that requirement, that hadn't used drugs, that hasn't sold drugs, that doesn't have criminal history. And that's a whole other area, the Giglio Brady ruling for law enforcement officers. And so we're all trying, Coffeyville, Independence, Parsons, Chanute, and we're all trying to up each other. And this is across the state of Kansas and across the United States. And quite frankly, it's very difficult to find that right that right person.
But my concern's not about what happens all across the United States. My concern is about what happens in Coffeyville, Kansas. And obviously, it has become quite concerning to the citizens of Coffeyville why we can't hire people. And I need to know what we need to do to get some people, quality people hired. You mentioned, you brought it up, the polygraph test that you're administering. That was just instituted 2 years ago.
No, it was.
3 years ago?
Since 2012, the polygraph exam, and I'll have to be honest with you, I'm glad we do it. We've had
How many
several
other-
applicants, we have had several applicants that, if it weren't for that, we probably would have hired them, and thank God we didn't.
How many other agencies use the polygraph test in this area?
I don't know a number.
Can you get that?
I can try.
You
Well,
just-
you think it working pretty good?
I
You
think the process we have is working for the quality of people that we want. I mean, every chief, every commander I visited with, they say, do not lower your standards. Don't lower your standards, or your community will suffer for it. Whether it's being viewed on the mainstream media, on the television, of somebody doing something they shouldn't have done, or committing a crime while employed for you. I don't want that. When I put my name on somebody, I want the best that we can get. And it's tough. All the other chiefs are doing it. I can try to get polygraph numbers for you. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's a finite amount of people that want to be a police officer. And every law enforcement agency in the state of Kansas are trying to get that person. And we're not playing catch up. We are actually trying to do and be proactive in that process. Just reading the other day, City of Topeka in Kansas wanted to hire 36 police officers. They offered a $5,000 sign-on bonus. They did videos. They showed those recruitment videos in movie theaters throughout the Topeka area and around in the surrounding communities. And they ended up with only 12 applicants that they ended up. I'm just hitting some of the smaller highlights of what they did, but I mean, they really went after it. And that's the problem.
And how many people are you down still?
Right now, we need 4 officers. We have 2 going through the background process right now. And so we have opened up the process up to try to fill the other 2 vacancies. I don't know where these 2 are gonna land. But
Another question I have is what is the process that we're using to apply for the position?
what is the process?
Yeah, how do you get to the application? Do you have to go to a website? Do you have to come to the police department? What do
The
you
city
do?
of Coffeyville is using HRE Partners.
Okay, and how does that work?
You would have to ask Marilyn, but it's a website-based program.
How does that work?
Marilyn, can you speak to that, please?
HRE Partners is a online application service that the Sedgwick County runs, and they have invited cities, counties to use their service. It is online so that we don't have to go out and buy an online service. It's pretty simple. You go online and they call it a profile. It's just like filling out a paper application. And then you take it and you can look through every job, like if Garden City's on there, El Dorado, whatever, police officers, truck drivers, whatever. Once you filled out your profile, then you take it over. If you want to apply for Coffeyville Police Department, you take and apply for that. It shows up here. We invite them to a written test. And we typically have about half show up for a written test that applied. I don't know why they applied and didn't come, but that's pretty much what we have. And then, we have probably, we changed tests. We went to the post-test instead of the IPMA test. And now we probably have 60 to 70% pass it. And then they go and do a physical agility test after that. And then they do an interview. And then they're offered a background packet.
So can you make that easier to get an application? Do we advertise with like Kansas Works and things of that
We
nature?
do. We put it on the city's Facebook page, on the city's website, police department's Facebook page, CanWorks, CLEAT, KPOA, Missouri Southern's, police school they have. So we try and really get the word out there. And then, of course, hopefully our employees tag. I use LinkedIn to try and get the word out as well, so.
So there's no way possible that we can make that easier?
And when you say easier,
I don't know, obviously I'm trying to think of anything outside of the box to make
If
things.
someone
easier,
walked
because
in, if someone
obviously-
walked in my office and wanted an application, we've still got some paper ones.
Okay.
If they were struggling trying to get it filled out, we'll hand them a paper one.
and
So-
that goes back a little bit to the, trying to make it open-ended, because there were times when we weren't accepting applications, although we had an opening. And so we've changed that. We had an opening, but because of the testing process, we weren't truly taking applications.
So you can apply at any time now?
We're testing that
Yes,
right now.
yes, that's what we went to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Starting like now or?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
now.
We opened a recruiting yesterday.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Real quick, Chief,
Not so fast.
I'm sorry. One thing I want to say, I'm excited about the emergency services building because I think that'll be a great recruitment tool. But on the recruiting, what kind of recruitment outreach do we do? And
I'm
do
actually
you
glad you
have,
brought that up.
do you have the funding for that?
We have gone to military facilities
Huh?
and tried recruiting through the military facilities while the soldiers are out. They have like a career day, but it's while they're out processing, when they're doing a large group. Missouri Southern, any colleges that have law enforcement programs, job fairs. We've been to Wichita to a job fair. We've tried a lot of things. It's just that there's a lot of communities looking for a very small pool of people.
But the question about the funding, yes, we'll make certain funding is there, that if, you know, last year I actually went to Wichita and to a job fair to recruit for them. We have, you know, we're trying anything we can, especially the job fairs that are advertising that they're focusing on military, you know, trying to recruit military personnel. That, you know, that would be something that we're looking at. So.
We're trying really hard to try to get certified officers so we don't have the 14-week downtime of sending somebody to the police academy. It would be nice to have a turnkey officer to have out on the streets patrolling Coffeyville within a few weeks after they're used to our internal policies. But unfortunately, they're far and few between.
And we have, correct me, we have 2 officers currently at law enforcement training, right?
We have 2 currently out
Yeah.
there.
And I think the bottom line, correct me if I'm wrong, Quinn, we haven't talked about it, but if we get our wages up another $2 or $3 an hour in the future, maybe that'll help.
You know, anything will help at this point because all the other communities are doing the same thing.
Right.
And the larger metropolitan departments are starting to do lateral transfers. In other words, they're, like the city of Wichita, they are doing lateral transfers so that if you're already a certified officer, you're not going through their full police academy, you're going through a very small police academy. And so communities around the city of Wichita are really feeling the hurt because they're losing a lot of their sworn staff to them, and other communities are starting to do that as well. And so, again, everybody's trying to do their best to recruit people to serve their community. But it is nationwide.
I imagine, though, it's pretty hard for a young man to come out of college and not only the physical sacrifice, but but the way the hours are worked, and that it's hard to get time off to spend with your own family. And if you have kids, to be able to go to their birthday parties, you get called out and stuff like that. So I imagine that's kind of hard to deal with too. I would love to find a way to make both sides happy on that issue as well.
You know, and we'll continue to look at enticements, for lack of a better word, on what we can do to make us more attractive or make the job itself more attractive. You know, and obviously if you guys have ideas, we want to look at all things possible. Like I said, we've really, over the course of the last few months, changed the way we've structured things and are, in my opinion, truly stepping up and focusing on getting bodies here. But at the same time, we don't want to lower our standards so that it's not just a warm body, it's a,
That's the right person.
Yeah.
I don't think that you wanna lower your standards, but you gotta be willing to give on some other things too, to be able to entice these millennials to come to, law enforcement. And some of the old school ways, they're just not going for anymore. And that's just a blanket statement across the board. And if you're not willing to adapt, then this is the problem that you're gonna have.
Travis, are you interested in being a police officer?
Well, I can tell that the city's making they're putting their right step forward, you know. I mean, I think we're trying. Just, what's it gonna take? It's just trying to figure out what it's gonna take to get people here. And I think, like you said, we've got 2 people, or Quinn said, we have 2 people that are in the process of. So that's 50% of what we're needing if they can pass the backgrounds and do everything it needs, so, you know.
Marilyn, off the top of your head, when is the next testing scheduled?
Last weekend in January.
January 27th will be our next scheduled testing. It's a Saturday, so.
So from the time they apply, and I know this is all timeline-wise, I know it's testing dates, but, so if they apply today and they test on, what,
27th.
When would they be, how soon would they know something? Would they know something on the 28th that they're coming in to take a?
Well, they would know immediately that whether or not they passed the written test, and then the physical test, I don't know how it's scheduled this time, is either the same day or the next day, or.
And that's how we set it up.
Yep.
Especially as a convenience to people coming here from out of town.
Mhm.
So we do the physical agility immediately preceding the written test. But to answer your question, if they make it through the written test, physical agility, and then we schedule an interview within a week typically, and we begin the background process. Again, it's either the captain, myself, or the detectives doing the background investigation. So if we're not preoccupied with other things, then we can typically get it done within a month, because we're relying on financial records.
Mhm.
Of course, trying to track down people that they've listed, and then getting documents that would require complete that background process that they have to provide us. So that takes some time, just getting their packets back to us after they fill it out. And then we schedule the polygraph and psychological test once that's completed. And again, we can typically get that done, but it's from an outside source, and so we're at the mercy of their ability to set a date up in regards to the polygraph.
Yep. The only reason I ask that is, just like you said, we're not the only ones out there looking for these people. So they're obviously not just applying for Coffeyville's police department.
No.
They're out applying for Chanute, Independence, Caney, you name it. They're out applying for them because they're looking.
And we recognize that, and that's
so-
why we try to get that process going. But when things happen and pull us away from it, we have to prioritize.
Sure.
Does it make any sense to put up a sign when people are traveling through town? They weren't hiring people. I mean, that works. You see them all over the place. I don't know if we're trying that as far as a recruitment tool.
I mean, we could utilize the digital board at 11th and Patterson.
One thing that I have I have found out and experienced is that local people stay, at least from this area.
Yeah,
You hire people from too far away and they don't stick around.
yeah.
Yep.
And we've experienced that firsthand a couple times. And, you know, people traveling through, I don't know.
Well,
I mean, it's
No.
worth a shot.
the odds are less, but, you know, I've seen it work. I've seen the sign thing work. Might be something we want to try. We're
So it
hurting.
takes one.
Yeah, the odds are less, but
Right.
thank you, Quinn.
Well,
Chief Bromley.
this isn't directed at any one person, but it is more or less directed to, because you're the leader of the city. We just came through an election, and one of the hottest topics on the election is the crime issues that we have here.
Mhm.
And we all spoke about that, all those candidates that ran for city commission. And I made bold statements on that very topic as well. And in the back of everybody's mind, one thing that we have to do to address the issue we have is we have to hire policemen. And I will say in the back of your mind, you have to know that those statements that I made were not hollowed words. I meant them. And I want this addressed. And it falls on your shoulders to
And
make
I-
sure
I
that
accept that.
that it gets done.
That's why, like I said, that's why we've shook things up a little bit. We're doing things
Good.
different than the way we are
Good.
used to doing them. And we're hopeful, you know, cautiously optimistic that it's gonna pay dividends.
I like to see us put that on that sign out there. I think that'd be a great idea. Got a lot of people coming through,
We do,
you know,
Yep.
a
town,
lot of people through there.
holidays.
Okay.
I move to approve the,
Second. Oh, sorry. I'd like to finish. Go ahead.
I forgot which one it is. It's
101.
17-101.
Yep.
A motion was made by Commissioner Williams and seconded by Commissioner Castlewood to approve resolution number R-17-101 for adoption. And that is just to refresh everybody's memory, to execute a memorandum of agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police. Commissioner Castlewood,
Aye.
Commissioner Dunn,
Aye.
Mayor Bauer,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Resolution number R-17-102, a resolution to adopt the 2018 compensation plan for non-represented employees. City Manager Kendall Francis will make comments.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is a result of the discussions we had at budget time on adjustments for non-representative. So these are all the positions that are not represented by a labor union. As we discussed, it would be a 1.5% increase, and I guess I'd entertain questions.
I have none.
How does everybody feel about it?
They
They
wish,
all want
they wish it was
20%.
20. I mean, I-
No, just a little feedback, because we haven't talked about it.
but,
What are other cities doing? I just, you know,
The information that I've seen across listservs and things like that, as far as what other cities are doing, I would say it's fairly right in the ballpark. They're from 1 to 3%, depending on the city and some of those things. This falls in line with, basically with cost of living adjustment, which is kind of where what we were using as our basis. And so,
Okay.
again, everybody always wants, would
well, I
hope for
just
more,
wondered
but.
what- if there was any comment.
yeah.
That sounds good.
yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number R-17-102.
And
Second.
Justin did it. Justin beat me.
I'm having trouble with the sections.
Mine,
Yeah.
Justin.
Justin.
You're talking over one another.
Yeah, well, we both kind of went. He barely beat me.
Motion was made by Mayor Bauer and seconded by Commissioner Dunn to approve resolution number R-17-102 for adoption. Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Dunn.
Aye.
Ordinance number G-18-01, first reading of an ordinance to approve electric rate schedule LEP-17 line extension policy. Electric Deputy Mike Shook will make comments.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. The item I bring before you this evening is an ordinance to amend the electric rate schedules as adopted on 9/22 of 2015 to include a policy for electric service line extensions within the retail service area of Coffeyville. In our ongoing effort to cover cost of service, a line extension policy has been developed by Utility Financial Solutions as part of our cost of service study and our rate analysis and rate design. This analysis of the electric line extension cost, an analysis of electric line extension costs for customers on our system was performed, defining the maximum contribution the city should make to connect a customer to our system. The calculation is based on customer classes, contributions towards the fixed cost of the system. The following steps were taken to complete the line extension analysis. The variable costs were determined to serve each customer class. Contribution margins for each class were calculated. The calculated contribution margins were then converted for each class to a per unit basis on kilowatt hours or a kW, kilowatt for demand. Contribution margins per class group were calculated over an appropriate period of 5 to 7 years, assuming a 6% discount. Similar customer classes were combined to provide a maximum investment by the utility per billing basis for the residential, commercial, and industrial classes. We have previously been providing these services, charging customers on a case-by-case basis. We may charge this one 100% of the cost. We may charge this one 90 with no rhyme or reason. I've seen it all over the scale in my 9 years in this position. So hopefully adoption of this policy will set out a guideline and give staff a guideline and allow us to be consistent on how we treat our customers. And this is the industry standard where a utility does contribute to the connection cost for a customer. So I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Go ahead.
Well, we've done, this is just redoing it, or?
This is actually adding a policy to our rate code, so it would become part of the rate code itself. And it stipulates it's attached with the staff report. It spells out, depending on your customer class, how much the city will pay to connect you to our system. If you're a resident coming into town and you want to build a new house,
Right.
then we would spend up to $1,127 to connect you to our system. That's how much we would spend in equipment, man hours to connect you to our system.
So, go ahead.
Well, like on the, industrial large power, it's almost 300,000. That'd be kind of negotiable, wouldn't it, on that kind of a deal?
You can, but this would set the minimum amount. But I
thought you said up to, that'd be a maximum amount. I mean,
correct.
I mean,
If it's a large power that's gonna bring in a lot of jobs, then yeah, that would be negotiable, and the city would offer, I assume, incentives, but we've only got a few customers within our service territory that are true large power customers.
okay. Well, you guys have looked it over pretty good and think this is good, right, Mike?
It's a policy that's needed. It gives us some direction, and we can be consistent with our customer base.
That's it. Consistency right
Yes,
there.
sir.
So, and that's kind of the way I read through it when I was reading through it the other night, was this shows consistency.
Correct.
Because
And I didn't
if I have to
mention-
pay one rate and Commissioner Doan has to pay another rate, and we start talking, we're neighbors, we're gonna start questioning
It's
what
a-
Coffeyville's doing, right?
Absolutely. And this would be reviewed, and the cost would be adjusted every time we do a cost of service study.
Yep. I have no further questions.
You answered all mine.
Okay.
I'm upset I didn't get to ask you anything.
Okay. So,
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number G-18-02 for
01.
first reading.
02?
01.
Just 01.
Man, we're way down here.
02?
Oh, did I? Oh, sorry.
We're even now.
G-1801 for first reading.
We're even.
Got it.
Okay.
So.
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Mayor Bauer, seconded by Commissioner Taylor to approve ordinance number G-18-01 for first reading. Commissioner Dodd?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Mayor Bauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Castles.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Ordinance number G-18-02, first reading of an ordinance to adopt minimum standards for rental properties. City Manager Kendall Francis will make comments.
Mayor and Commissioners, Commission had directed staff to begin to look at the possibility of developing an ordinance and policies in regards to minimum housing standards for rental properties. And back in November, we had a work session to discuss this. We brought forth recommendations, and through that evening, in that work session, we discussed some changes to what staff had brought forth originally. Since that time, city attorney has put that into an ordinance that reflects the desires that we discussed that night, and I'm bringing that forward to you tonight. Some of the highlights of it is that this ordinance would establish minimum housing standards for rental properties that are based off Section 8's Housing Quality Standards, HQS. It does have a mechanism for inspection of rental properties, and first it requires that all landlords register their rental properties through a registration with the city clerk, and be provided a license, a landlord license. Any properties, as it currently stands, any properties that are registered before July 1st of 2018 will be quote-unquote grandfathered as far as inspections are concerned, but any changes to that registration after that date, whether if you were to add an additional property, either directly or after renewal time, those properties will be subject to inspections by our housing inspector. It is essentially a complaint-driven ordinance, so that a mechanism in place for complaints to be made to the city and to the building official, and who is then charged with investigating those complaints and seeing if they have merit, and then spells out the process that would go forward for inspections of those properties. If the inspections were to show deficiencies and that they were not meeting the minimum standards, a timeline is given for corrections to be made. If the corrections are not made, then that property will no longer be allowed to be rented until it is brought up to those minimum standards. And I think that's pretty much the highlights of it. I guess I would entertain specific questions about it.
Pretty straightforward.
I have no questions. I read through it all, and I think that's everything that we had talked about. A lot of information there, but
Well, just for the public to know, this is basically what Independence is doing too, right?
We did model it off of Independence. I do want to, and I'm glad you brought them up, because I did want to touch on a point. Currently, we are trying to hire a building official. That is the person, we're replacing Dennis Jacobs' position. But that, as we see it, will be the person who will do those inspections. Until the time that we can get someone hired for that position, I've spoken with the City of Independence about the possibility of working out some kind of agreement to use their inspector or help with inspections in that interim. And they're amenable to that, and we think we can work out something so that we can utilize, and they can help us out on inspections.
it's a good solution.
Yeah, I like that idea.
But this time frame, like I said, was July 1st. That'll allow staff time to advertise this, get it out, get the word out to landlords that they are going to be responsible for registering their properties, and that there is a fee associated with the landlord license, which is which is reflected in the fee schedule that we just passed. And so,
More regulations, yippee.
I have no questions. Anybody?
I have one thing, once I can get my microphone working here. It's kind of dead on me. Okay, on section 8-407, notice and right of entry, under the section A, where it talks about notice, I would like some kind of wording that it says it has to be done within 14 days unless all parties agree. For the enforcement officer, I wanted to call it the right name. For something they can go back on, I'd like there to be a cap on there. So it's 14 days up to 21 days, given that all parties agree.
okay, well, I was actually seeing the 14 days as the cap. If all parties agreed, in my mind, meant that if you wanted to come tomorrow, we can agree to it, they'd be happy to do that.
Okay, okay.
But we can, whatever you're.
I just don't want it to end up going out. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm trying to figure out what we're discussing, because I'm not.
Yeah, I'm a little lost too. Which item was it?
It
We
is
just want to make sure people don't extend it
8-407.
forever.
It is
An X amount of days it needs to
it
be
is
done.
the amount of time that we are to give notice to the landlord that we are going to make an inspection. And as it stands right now, we have to give at least 14 days notice of a pending inspection, unless,
Of the appointment time.
yeah, unless, right,
Yeah.
if it is a non-emergency inspection, we give them that amount of time. Unless everybody would agree that we could do it sooner or something, but.
Right,
So your
okay.
preference would be to say, but not to exceed 21 days?
Well,
or-
I'm okay with the cap being 14. I want to make it convenient for the landlords as well, but I don't want
We don't want it 2 months from now, you're.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because, they're extending it out.
Yeah.
And I want something for I have to look again, enforcement officer, something they can go back on.
Well, we can easily put a cap, but you just let us know what you think that cap should be.
My opinion is I think the cap can be 14. We just
Yeah.
say 14 is it. I mean, that's 2 weeks, right?
Maybe if the wording, and it maybe just the way I read it, but if it was, or sooner, if all parties agree.
A lot of the notifications that we're required are at least 10 days. So if we were to say at least 10 days in advance, but not to exceed 14 days?
That would be,
Yeah, that's,
right.
that sounds good. Kind of falls into suit with what we're already doing then. I mean, in a
Right,
sense,
and
so.
a lot of the notifications that we give through code enforcement and stuff like that
10
have that
days.
magical 10 days.
Okay.
And we don't have to bring this back. We can pass this with the amendment, right? So just the first,
So the
okay,
second.
all right. Okay. I'm good.
I'm
Make a
good.
motion.
Second. Castler.
Motion was made by Commissioner Castler and seconded by Commissioner Williams to approve ordinance number G-18-02 for first reading. Commissioner Dodd.
Aye.
Commissioner Castler.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bowers.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Resolution number R-17-103, a resolution to authorize street repair on South Walnut. Engineering Superintendent Thomas Osborne will make comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight I'm bringing for you a resolution to do some repairs, much-needed repairs on the highway in between the railroad crossings. The railroad, of course, is putting in a new track. They have also expedited, I guess I should say, an agreed-upon item that we had kind of negotiated for allowing that additional track to be placed in, and they're removing the center track of the three that were almost perpendicular to the highway. In removing that, they decided they also wanted to, and they notified us, we figured that out Wednesday last week, I think it was, about the removal. Friday, we found out they're gonna replace the panels in the far north track. It's on the of those three. And then yesterday, we found out they're gonna replace the south track,
And they being Watco,
Watco, the,
Yeah.
or the Skull Railroad.
right.
So this resolution, we're actually showing is 33,000 for that. We, with looking at it, with the additional track being removed, what actually needs to happen is to replace everything from track to track. Because of how they chopped it up, Watco had went in and they put replaced where the track came out. And so there's 20,000 additional funds needed to do that work. We are in contact with Watco because if it was planned out, it would have been, there wouldn't be this additional, it would have just kind of tied together.
Right.
We're in contact with them. Their engineer had asked possibly doing a cost share on that, but he's still looking to see if he even has half the funds of those additional 20. Part of what happens there and why that railroad crossing has always been as bad as it is the tracks are unlevel. So the far south track, from the far south track to the center track, there's a 4-inch drop. And then from the center track back up, there was I think it's 3 to 5 inch, somewhere around 4 inches again, coming back up. And so you got that kind of roller coaster ride across there, and that causes the issue. When Watco or the Skull came in, removed that track, they went back just where it was because there wasn't originally plans to redo the other tracks. Then as they looked at them, okay, we have the traffic control, it needs to be done now. So they're replacing those, and that's really where we need to do something. The original 33 is just the broken panels, and if we put them back, we'd still have the roller coaster. We'd hear about it. It's not the perfect, it's not right, but that's what would fix the broken panels that needed replaced. Like I said, to do it right, it really needs another 20,000 on top of this, whether it's split, cost share between the city and the railroad, or if we can get the railroad to pony up all of it, that'd be great. I don't foresee that, but that's kind of where we're leading. One other thing I want to mention before I forget, with how they redo the tracks, they bring them up, put a new ballast underneath, and they say roughly a month, it takes a month, they drop an inch. So for when that opens back up, there would be 1 inch drops. Because we'll put our new concrete down so that when that compaction and that when they drop, it comes more close to even, and it'll be a lot smoother crossing. We're bringing the concrete all the way to the panels, so there's just a 1 inch expansion joint where previously there's been 4 to 6 inches of asphalt that they'd come in, they'd pour in, they try to compact it. You can't ever get it fully compacted, and then it just causes more and more as time goes on. I'd be happy to answer any questions I can. My recommendation at this point would be to authorize the full tear out and make it right, and then we'll continue negotiations with Watco to get the additional funding, what we can for there. There is funds available in our transportation and sales tax to cover this, but this wasn't originally budgeted or planned.
So,
I've got a huge ding, 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 red flag that came up when you were making your discussion. You said to do it right.
To do it right.
Tell me what it takes to do it right
To
and
do it
not
right would-
halfway do it.
To do it right would be to raise that center panel up and get it to where it was a flat grade from between the two tracks.
It's essentially to
Get rid of
remove all
roller
the
coaster.
concrete between the north and south tracks.
Yep.
And pour it to one grade. Because as it stands right now, you're gonna be at about three different grades.
yeah.
So we're gonna do it, but we're not gonna do it right.
Originally,
This original plan right here was to do it to what we knew best, but now that
yeah,
they
we got
have
new information after this. was
literally
put
ripped
together.
out something yesterday.
Yeah.
And it has changed it drastically. We
So-
were on site tonight and looked at it.
What does it take to do it
It's gonna be
right?
roughly 53 to
53.
55,000 if we have to pay for it the entirety of ourselves. As Thomas indicated, we've been talking with Watco as a cost share. You know, my thought is that we need to try to get them to pay for the entirety of that $20,000 difference, because it is only because of the way they approach this project that we're in the position that we're at. I don't know how much leverage we have, you know, so if we can get a 50% cost share, I think, you know, I'd be happy, but our initial talks are, you're really responsible for all of it.
Yep.
I got a question about it. Go
I
ahead.
just have a comment.
Well, the thing is that if they, first of all, this negotiation with them obviously has to be done very quickly.
And we've already started as he indicated, him and Jim have already started talking with Neil from Watco, so.
Because, I mean, I don't want to halfway do
Right.
something. That's just,
No,
we're notorious for halfway doing stuff.
Well, and we've already met with Jeff Graham, and,
Yeah, and he's the contractor that Watco and Skoll has for their crossing already. So he's mobilized, he's there, traffic control's in place. If we act now, if we delay this, potentially almost $1,000 a day in traffic control.
and he's prepared to start tearing out in the morning.
Yep.
I just, my point is that if we're gonna do it and it's tore up and it's traffic controlled, we need to do it right. And whatever you said that we need
Right,
to
yeah,
do
that-
it right.
And we agree.
And not
Like I said,
halfway do it.
thi-
And whether
this
they're gonna
was
pay for it, we're gonna
from
split the
before.
cost or what, but we need to do it right.
Right.
Because this has been a disaster down there for a
Years.
long time. And this is our opportunity to make it, like he said,
Really, what
right.
we're gonna need from you tonight is to authorize expenditures of, I'm gonna say 55,000, because that's should cover us if we paid the entirety of it ourselves.
Okay, and that comes out of the,
The transportation.
Transportation sales tax funds.
and the money's there.
That
Yes.
was-
The money's there?
Talked to him this morning, and it should be there.
It's there. Okay.
So yeah, I went down and talked to Jeff this afternoon. I must have just missed you. I was probably there 30 minutes before you talking to him about that. And my opinion is, from what I saw, let's fix it right. Let's do it, because I mean, again, we talk about how much traffic runs down that road every day, and I heard the number 1,700 semi-trucks or something in that neighborhood. And it's either fix it right now or spend twice as much money and have to fix it and tear that road up again
Well,
whenever that
if
may
we,
be.
if we do it like it's set up right now, it will be destroyed in
No
this
time.
time next year.
Right.
The way the trucks are gonna be impacting over
Because
that.
they're gonna go down, back up, back down, and,
You're gonna
yeah.
have 80,000 pounds slamming down onto that.
And
1,700
it's
times
the-
a day.
Them deciding to do that south track is where it's, okay, we can actually, it'll actually make sense to do this.
So let's do it right
So,
now, instead of later or whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, and all these projects usually start with engineering. And we need to remember the city staff, you know, wouldn't it be normal to have a set of drawings to start this project? So this wouldn't happen?
with the railroad, they'll tell you, we were here first, and they probably were. That's the way their answer is to everything. They say it to KDOT, they say it to all the other dots all around the United States, and they get away with it. There's not much we can do because the highway is actually in railroad right of way, not the railroad in highway right of way. And that's where a lot of so they can do pretty much whatever they want. We had a lot of pull on while they were doing wanting to add that track, because that is actual tracks going into highway right of way instead of the other way around, where we negotiated that, getting that middle crossing, you know, it's not used, why does it need to be there? And so they're actually planning to backfeed the north side of the flour mill from east once we get Maple closed, which we agreed to 2 or 3 meetings ago, I believe.
Well, you know, the engineering and civil work for this project would have been probably, you know, 15, 20,000, in And we haven't talked about it, but,
Yeah.
you know, and now we're spending more than that. And you know,
But that's
that's
solely because of the work,
I
their
understand.
change in scope
I'm
in the
just
last
making the point.
week, yeah.
If we'd invested and thought about it, you know, spilt milk, whatever, but if we'd done, if the engineering, if it could have been done, it's just a lesson learned. To me,
Yeah.
it's a lesson learned.
And I mean, we still would have had the same rough costs. We'd have had additional engineering to make sure that all the grades were perfect and everything meshed really well. With what we're doing, field engineering, it will work. It's a straight grade between the two
Okay.
tracks. And like I said,
Well-
that's the best solution, the right solution.
Okay.
What's the timeline?
I'm not done. I'm not done.
Go ahead.
One
He's
more
not.
thing. Is there any way we can go to the state and ask for help? And we gotta go ahead and do it. I know we're out of time, but can you go back and ask the state and tell them what we did and see, because that's the state highway?
I don't know, other than the C-CLIP programs that run, that's about the only state highway grant that's going on right now. As we know, the governor rated KDOT funding.
Well, I remember our governor was here round back and said he'd do whatever he could to help the state. I mean, we need to try. You know, it's a letter, a few pictures, an explanation. Maybe we can try it. You know, it's a 10% chance, maybe, I don't know, but,
This
you know.
section and that this is, we have actually received letters from KDOT and about it for several years, because it is broken up, and just the requirements that the railroad requires to work in their right of way adjacent to their tracks are just insane. And so we've literally just, well, we can't do it because it's smack dab in between two tracks. That's where this originally, okay, they're tearing that out. Well, let's get in here and fix the north half. All of a sudden, the south half's got added, and so that's where
right.
we're scrambling yet even more to try to.
So we've decided we're gonna do this correctly.
Yes.
Right.
So we need to amend this resolution to add whatever number you said that,
I would
55.
recommend 55,000.
okay?
And I do want to clarify, this does not correct the far south track,
No, that
which is
angled
angles
track
across,
is,
angled
it's-
track down by 14th Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is, none of
Yeah,
this
it's
is affected
It's
by that.
about a block south of
Yeah,
this.
it's about three-quarters
Yeah.
of a block
Yeah.
south.
Yep.
Um,
So what's the timeline on
We're s-
completion?
We're still working within the initial timeline, that month
January
window.
4th.
That's why part of this is crucial, because
What was it? January what?
January 4th. They closed it on December 4th, so it was an exact month is what they were
Yeah.
shooting for.
Well, he said he couldn't pour concrete if it was below
like,
35 degrees. or-
35 and rising with the projected forecast above 40 degrees.
yeah.
We're gonna be right in that window.
Yeah, we're gonna be real close.
So I move to approve resolution 1703 with the amendment of 55,000.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Williams and seconded by Mayor Bauer to approve resolution number R-17-103 for adoption. And the estimated amount in the resolution will be changed to 55,000.
Correct.
Commissioner Castler,
Aye.
Commissioner Dove,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Mayor Bauer.
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution number R-17-91, a resolution to execute a contract with Action Communication for replacement of the Feaster Park Tower. Police Chief Quinn Bromley will make comments.
Mayor Commissioners, the police department's requesting to replace the Feaster Park radio tower with a new radio tower. City staff believes that the replacement of the 120-foot tall Feaster Park guide wire radio tower with the 180-foot self-support radio tower would provide a higher level of service for our entire community. The Caulfield Police Department is a public safety answering point for, which provides both radio and E911 communications for the southern half of Montgomery County, excluding Caney, and the northern half of Nowata County. And we are also backup PSAP for the entire county. So in other words, if the Independence PSAP goes down, we're required to cover all of Montgomery County. I included a lot of information in your packet. I don't know how much that you'd like to go into that, but I'll cover that the emergency services facility was designed to incorporate an 80-foot tall self-support tower to accommodate both our site elevation issues and the additional placement of coaxial cables and antennas and a microwave dish. And that would also work in conjunction with the current tower located up at Feaster Park. The cost of that tower at the Emergency Services Building back in May was estimated at $65,930. As I began to research this project, I discovered that the Feaster Park Tower was in bad condition. I contacted some radio people, Action Communication. They brought some people up to look at it, and because of it being an older tower, it was built sometime in the late 1970s or early 80s, possibly. We really don't have records to establish that. They couldn't really give me an idea of exactly how old it was, and so because of that, its age, they can't climb the tower. They'd have to get a man lift. Just to do an inspection, an estimate was $5,000. But keep in mind, that's repairing that tower, and we still needed a second radio tower at the Emergency Services Building. So through this process, I learned that we could eliminate having a second radio tower at the Emergency Services Building and replacing the current tower with a 180-foot self-support tower. And I reached out and sought some bids, and that bid came in at what you have at $88,000. Looking at the numbers, I don't know exactly how much, honestly, it would cost to repair the existing tower. So I truly believe that it's in our best interest to purchase and do it right, to purchase a self-support tower from Action Communication. And so I'm recommending the passing of this resolution.
Al, I bet you can rent some space on that thing.
Pardon me?
Can you rent space on that thing?
I don't know if that's, I don't have an answer to that. I'll have to refer to either our communications director or the gentleman from Action and Green Country Towers who are here.
Okay.
With the existing antennas that are required for the police department and everything, the tower is at 80% capacity. So there is little room left for renting space out.
Okay.
You're from Action Communication?
No, sir, I'm Green Country Tower Service.
Okay, never mind.
Where are you guys out of?
Wausau, Oklahoma.
Keep in mind, the current tower that he just spoke about is at 80% capacity. We still need to add 6 antennas and coaxial cable. It's at its maximum load right now, and that's taking into account for a 1-inch ice accumulation on that with probably about a 40-mile-per-hour wind.
That's our current one that's up
On
there?
our current tower.
Okay.
In other words, it's at its load.
So if,
with a freestanding self-support tower, it would handle 4 times that load.
Question? Are you gonna take down the existing tower?
It will be
next
removed.
question.
And
Okay.
that is part of this quote.
Okay. I have
Still
no
my question.
questions.
No more questions?
Nope.
no more
No more
questions?
questions?
I just one comment. We just had a rather lengthy discussion on how to get police officers here. If we have a ice storm and we don't have radio communication, we're definitely not gonna get any officers, so I think it's a good idea.
Thank you.
Just so that you're aware, there will be some additional expenses that come with this project. There will be the construction of a building at the base of the tower, as well as some security fencing, which are not part of this bid here, but we will be bringing forward at a later time, after we receive bids for those construction of that stuff.
And that's not a very large structure. We're talking 10 by 10, small garage.
And where's this, what's fund is this coming from?
That it's gonna be coming from, the funds that were set aside for, furnishings, that's, for lack of a better word.
And so will the building and the fencing will come out of that
And
same?
so, yeah, and part of the, and we did not include that in this, part of this is we will be providing some of the materials, the split face brick that already exists, that we have access to. And the timing of needing to get this done, we can come in at the later date and add the security fencing and the building.
Speaking of timeline, we give the okay when?
Our contract is pretty specific. Once we sign the contract with Action Communications and provide them with the first installment, the construction will begin. And the timeline is through April, to a maximum timeline of April 30th.
Okay.
You gonna need a crane?
Yes, sir.
I know no boy that owns one.
Well, you guys need to think about this local contractor thing.
I know, that's what I said, I know
You
no
didn't
boy
think
that-
about it, you were done with your questions, you need to think about these
Well, we're
things.
just waiting on you to ask it.
I was waiting on you, huh? Okay, well, good luck with that deal, thank you. We need to, I think we need to think about, you know, rent some space out on that thing for some, we can generate a little revenue with it. I know one outfit that needs to put something on it, okay? So,
I'll make a motion. R-17-91 for adoption.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Castleton, seconded by Commissioner Williams to approve resolution number R-17-91 for adoption. Commissioner Castleton.
Aye.
Commissioner Downey.
Aye.
Mayor Bauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
aye.
City managers report.
Mayor, Commissioners, let's get some of this out of the way real quick. We'll start talking about buildings. We've been busy a little bit about emergency services. Staff just completed owners training later this week, and they've turned the keys to the building over to the city. Couple of the ancillary things that are going on. KDOT was here on Tuesday and Wednesday performing the gap analysis. Their field data tech was here, and he spent the majority of Tuesday here and a little bit of Wednesday morning doing site survey and the gap analysis. So we expect to hear rather quickly on KDOT's decision as far as the traffic signal. We've already scheduled the ribbon cutting and open house, and that's, just to remind everybody, that's Friday, January 5th, 2 o'clock for the ribbon cutting, and then we're going to have open house through 6 o'clock in the evening to invite people in to see the facility. I would like to just say thank you to Aaron's Appliance and McClellan's Appliances for the appliances for the facility, and some for City Hall that is yet to come. But they delivered and installed that this week as well. And just a few little odds and end things that the city is still doing within the building. We are scheduled January 8th, I believe. Fire department is scheduled to start moving into the facility. It will be followed by the police department mid to late part of the month after all of staff went through the 911 training. So we're sending out invitations now for the ribbon cutting, and believe that Cindy will be sending that to the news media as well as so we'll start advertising for that as well. City Hall, things continue to progress pretty well there, And we have scheduled an open house for City Hall as well, and that is going to be Thursday, January 11th, same time. It'll be 2 p.m. for the ribbon cutting, and we're going to open it up for the citizens to come take a look around. And so 2 to 6 for an open house there at City Hall. The next day, Friday the 12th, we will close City Hall and begin moving from our temporary locations. Monday is a holiday for the city as it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We plan to be open at City Hall on the 16th in our new offices.
Good.
So we're looking forward to that. We had discussed previously the commission taking a walkthrough of that building before we got everything taken care of, and so I was trying to find a day that I thought might work well. I was wondering if the 9th of January, it is a commission meeting night, but if maybe we were to convene early, 5:45 or something, go across the street, take a walk through, and then come here and start our meeting. Would that work well?
Let's do it at
5:30.
5:30.
I mean, you're not rushed.
Yeah, 5:30.
But
Yeah, I like that.
so, okay, we will plan on January 9th at 5:30, and we'll be across the street. We'll take a tour, and then we'll come over here for our regularly scheduled meeting.
Maybe Decker have someone there, or who,
I can visit with.
you might ask them if they'd want to.
Okay.
They wouldn't have to, but if Ron's son or somebody'd want to be there, or Ron or somebody.
I'll visit with Jason
Jason.
and see if they, what they would have available that
Okay.
night.
Okay.
Some of the projects I want to just give you a quick update on. Obviously, we know about the South Walnut. We did change the detour, as we had kind of alluded to last commission meeting. So we think that has made things better. The fence enclosure around the trash cans on 10th Street parking lot, that has been completed. 11th Street city crews made the final pour today under the underpass, and tomorrow the eastbound lanes will be open, and we'll have one westbound lane opened, and then we have a 7-day cure time for that concrete that was poured today. So a week from today,
Getting back to normal.
We'll be back to normal. Last meeting, we had mentioned utility cuts and trying to do something with some of the utility cuts that were existing in town. We have taken the worst 25 of them and cut them out and concreted them, and to alleviate some of that issue. Our water leak there on 8th Street, crews have replaced about 300 foot of pipe. They found a couple additional splits in the bottom of the old iron pipe. It has been loaded. They're filling it with, packing it with gravel to weight it down before they can put it to full pressure, and then they'll be backfilling and getting that area cleaned up.
Yeah, I didn't see any water running down 8th Street today when
Right,
I
I know,
go
it's a-
past there.
it's a-
So I
it's
paid
a nice
specific
sign.
attention to that part
Yeah.
right there.
Safe routes to school. BG Consultants will be here the 26th through the 29th doing some surveying of the primary routes that we're looking at. So that would be Klein Road, 1st Street, 4th Street, and Parkview, I believe. So you'll see some survey work being done, and that's associated with safe routes to school. So that's moving forward nicely. City-county collaboration, we met on Monday for a monthly meeting, visited with Montgomery, the Montgomery County Wellness Coalition, but we also had some discussions about, we had developed a subcommittee to come around and talk to the various governing bodies to give updates as to what has taken place over the last year. And candidly, that subcommittee is a little bit behind, but we pushed them on Monday to get their presentations finished up and schedule it once, probably right after the first of the year when the new commissions have have been seated.
And that's, the new commission's the 9th,
Yes, for us, it'd be the 9th.
so that's our next meeting.
That is correct, yes.
So this is Marcus's last full meeting. Thought I'd bring that to
Correct,
note.
it will be.
Okay.
Just wanted to say something about the Shop with the Cop event yesterday. I'm very thankful for all those who participated. Obviously, the sponsors, Walmart, the officers, and everyone who volunteered their time to come out and help with that event. It's a great community event. It was nice to see the kids. They were excited. We were talking about this beforehand.
A lot of pictures on Facebook. That was
Yeah,
good.
they,
Shop with a cop, EMS, and firefighter. Was it?
Firefighter.
Yeah.
And it was
I
it
like
was
the
a
way it
lit-
was worded on there, Cindy.
It was a litany of people that were helping the kids shop, and
Yep.
and they were appreciative.
I
Just
think
kind
they're
of-
doing that across the country in different cities.
Yeah, but I know this was our 9th year that we've
Oh.
done it.
I saw
That's
it
what they
taking
said.
place in Oklahoma City today.
Okay.
Had a whole bunch of police officers and firemen, a whole bunch of kids, like a bunch, okay, so anyway.
Just a reminder, we are hiring for some positions. Obviously, the police officers we just visited about, building official, but we're also taking applications for a utility billing clerk and customer service representative in for utility billing. And then finally, Monday is Christmas, so city offices will be closed Monday, but we'll be back at it on Tuesday morning. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer anything you have.
How many questions? Anyone else?
I don't think so.
Okay. So at this time, we'll open it up for comments from the public. The public is free to comment on items not listed on the agenda. Please address comments to the commission as a body and be mindful of others who may also wish to speak by limiting your comments to 3 minutes. One.
I'm not here as city staff.
Okay.
I'm here representing the Coffeyville Historical Society. We would like to invite everyone out to the Brown Mansion for our last night of the candlelight tours. Those are Saturday from 6 to 8. Feel free to come out and enjoy the mansion. It's the best time of year to be out there and see it in all of its splendor and take family photos, and you can buy poinsettias. There's candles for sale. Just a great time to be out there with your family and enjoy some of the things that Coffeyville has to offer.
Great.
Thank
Well,
you.
I know we lost John Alvey too, I'll mention that.
Yes.
And
Yes,
I
we
know
did.
he helped you guys.
Oh, absolutely. He put a
So-
lot of time and effort in for the Historical Society, and we truly appreciate Wendy and John both, but we hated to see that loss.
Just mention that, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Steph.
Anyone else? This time, we'll open up to comments from the commissioners and staff.
I have something.
It's all you.
As Mr. Taylor noted, this is my last full meeting. I would like to say thank you to the public for voting me in. It has been a roller coaster 4 years and then some, but I've enjoyed it. There have been some tough decisions that I had to make, but I really truly do feel that I left Coffeyville a better place than when I first started here. This will not be the last of me. I have some things going on for the public. I have an event I'm trying to put on in March, and I look forward to being able to spend my Tuesday nights with my family. My children are very happy I get to do that. I'm somewhat thrilled. I want to thank for those who have served with me. I have really enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure. Thank you all the staff who's worked with me. I know I pestered you guys quite a bit, but in the end, it was worth it. And I hope people keep on trying to serve. The spot is hard. It is a hard spot to do sometimes, but it is well worth the effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kessler. Kendall, I don't have any comments. You pretty much answered all the things I was going to talk about. The fence looks good. Streets looks like it's getting fixed down there by the by the feed store, and, you know, things are coming together.
Okay. Well,
Anyone else?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.